Hello everybody, welcome back. I'm the Stretch Professor, and this is going to be my first entry in a new series that I want to do called For Real or For Fun, sort of slightly deeper analysis of some of the off-meta picks that are being talked about a lot and that are being sort of brought up on different channels up there. And the reason that I wanted to do this series is because I get asked about these things a lot on the stream, and it's just really hard to get information about these types of off-meta builds because all of these other content creators, most of them, their entire business model is on trying to hype up off-meta picks, clickbait it so that people click on it, and then they just say that everything's OP, right? You never see something that's like, new Korean pick, it's okay sometimes, you never see that. It's always all caps, it's OP, and then you go and try it out for yourself, and you're like, man, this really isn't that good, or I'm not winning a lot with it. So sometimes those things are really good. Sometimes these off-meta picks are really good. But then sometimes also, more times than not, you're like, oh, I just got hyped up off of something that really wasn't that great. So I'm going to try to shoot you straight. I'm going to tell you, what I know about this, what I think about these things, just to give you a little bit more perspective, and just to help you be a little bit more informed if you want to try these builds. So we're going to start off with AD Twisted Fate here, and then there are several other ones that I want to look at. I've talked about Tier Kaisa a lot, but I can talk about Tier Kaisa some more. Talked about that in the most recent 80 carry tier list and my patch notes tier list for 918 if you want to see that. But I could do a separate video on that. I keep getting asked about Swain support, so I'll probably do something for that. And if you have something in mind that you would like to see, just let me know in the comments. Something that's getting hyped up or talked about on other channels is potentially being really good. That's off meta, and I'll do a really quick analysis. But this is not going to be a full in-depth guide for this champion. It's just going to be a review based on sort of my initial ideas and what I've seen in the game every time I've seen this build in this champion, whatever it is. So, not a full review, just sort of thinking through it and thinking about whether it's a good idea or not. So I'll just come up front and tell you, I think that Twisted Fate, 80 Twisted Fate, is situational at best. I'd give it like a 3 out of 10. I think it's for fun and not for real, and I'm going to tell you why in this video. Now, keep in mind also that my audience here is primarily going to be like silver and gold players, sort of your average level players. But I will definitely make a note on some of these off-meta videos if I think that it could be really good in Challenger or really good in Pro, or if I think it could be really good in like Iron or Bronze. If there are like some discrepancies between high-low play and low-low play, I'll definitely point those out as well. But I think certainly in Silver and Gold, it's not going to be that great most of the time. There will be some situations where it'll be all right, and we'll talk about that in a second. But even in Challenger, I know there's a one-trick Challenger guy that does something like this. I watched a Mid-Beast video about the guy. I don't remember who he was, but there are definitely, people that win games with this build. But let's go ahead and get in there, because I'm going to try to make these shorter. I know it's always a meme on my channel, but I'm going to see if we can really aim for like 15 to 30 minutes tops on these things, maybe even faster, just to give you a really quick idea about what's going on here. So first off, and it's going to be a mixture of sort of qualitative evidence, what I've seen, what I think about, kind of theoretical evidence, sort of, walking through the champs, looking at the numbers, thinking about them, and then some analytical evidence too. What are the stats saying? What are high-low people doing? What are pro people doing? And how does all that fit in there? Okay, so this build itself, what we're talking about is it primarily runs Klepto. In the past, it has run Grasp of the Undying, but Klepto has been more popular lately, and then just Footwear, Biscuits, Time Warp Tonic are the most common builds. Secondaries, there are a couple different paths. Some people run like Triumph and Coup de Grace, but some of the more successful builds that I saw, just kind of flipping through some of the high-low people, are Mana Flow, Ban, and Transcendence. I think that Mana Flow is particularly really important with this build because as Mid-Beast pointed out in his video, and be sure to check that out, he does kind of a breakdown of someone who plays this at high elo. He's a great content creator, seems like a really cool guy. But yeah, check that out if you want to see sort of his breakdown of a VOD of this build. But he's talking about how you have real mana problems early because you don't get a mana item. If you're doing APTF, then you're going to get Ludens early typically, or Rod of the Ages. Depending on, the meta and, how fast you want your power spike to be. Rod's obviously going to take longer to come online. But with this, you're going to be rushing Trinity Force, and so you're not going to have the mana early, so it's going to be really easy to go out of mana. So Mana Flow will help you out a little bit with that, and then Transcendence, just to get that extra CDR. It's always good on Twisted Fate. More ults, more abilities. And then even if you go over the CDR cap, which you probably won't with this build, but if you do for some reason... with some of your final items, then you can always, it'll just convert over to AP. So I prefer that, but Coup de Grace and Triumph can also work. Okay, and then your items, you're going to be going for Trinity Force, Rapid Fire Cannon, and Infinity Edge. And after that, it's kind of situational. Some people do, if we look over here, you've got some people that'll do like Wit's End mixed in there. Phantom Dancer sometimes is mixed in there. Gensu's occasionally is mixed in there. I really don't like Gensu's. I mean, if you have Wit's End, I guess that makes it a little bit better, but you definitely, if you do get Gensu's, you would not want that until way later, and only after you have Wit's End, because otherwise you're not going to have an on-hit effect that's meaningful. You've got your E, but it's not going to matter that much. And as you can see, most people, or at least a lot of people, are still going the AP build. I'd say at least half of it. And up here, in terms of this representation, like most picked items, you know, the Trinity Force, which is this specific build here, is only picked 1/3 of the time. So it's not everywhere. Not every single TF is doing it. And the most common rune is still going to be Comet and not Klepto. So, you know, some people tell you, oh, every challenger's doing this build right now. I was like, no, they're not. Most of them are not doing this. People who are playing TF. There are definitely an increasing amount of people that are playing this for sure. But there's still quite a few people that are doing AP builds. So just keep that in mind. And then if we look at some of the stats here also, if we look at 9.16, which was the most recent, like, full patch with a lot of games on it. 9.17 was kind of clipped short. It was like playoffs in a lot of regions and things like that. If we look here with Twisted Fate, he was only played 7 times. And does that have his win rate on there? Yeah, wins. And he won 4 and lost 3. Okay. But he only had 7 times that he was picked, so not very high presence at all in Pro, so it's not like he's everywhere. It's not like he's super OP in Pro right now either. Although, you know, some people say every Pro's playing it. No, they're not. He's got 7 games on the patch, okay? Some people are playing it, and a couple of those games are G2 versus Fnatic. Now, that was, you know, that was a really good playoff series. Be sure to go watch it if you want to watch some good quality League of Legends. But it's G2. You know, G2 plays really weird stuff. You always got to kind of put an asterisk near them. And then some of the other ones were just some, like, I don't know what you'd call, like, off-meta regions, maybe. Like, not mainstream regions, as far as I know. So, anyways, it's okay. It does have some pro play, but it's by no means everywhere, both in pro play and even at the top end of the ladder. As far as, like, win rates go in normal solo queue, TF as a whole is 49%. I can't tell, like, well, I guess we could click on that and see what that build is. Let me see. Because the only build you're going to build Trinity in is with that build. You're not going to build Trinity when you have AP as your build. Okay, so it's 49% if you go Trinity. Now, Rapid Fire is, sometimes you will get that with an AP build or a hybrid build. But yeah, if you just have Trinity and kind of the game ends, it's not going to be as strong. Although, as you can kind of see, once you start getting like BF swords and Wit's Ends and things like that, it does get a bit better. He goes up to 56% once he gets Infinity Edge. So it does scale really well over time. But, I mean, it has an even higher win rate when you get to the top-end AP items, right? When you get to Spellbinder and Rabadons, then it's even a higher win rate than Infinity Edge. So, yes, TF does tend to perform better over time when he has a lot of items. Some of that is also indicative of people who are just snowballing really hard and get to that, you know, they're 10-0 and they get their death cap. So it doesn't necessarily mean that it's, like, over a long period of, like, when the game is, like that it's a 30-minute game. It could just be that most people who get to that item, like, maybe half the time they're snowballing really hard. So, that's okay. But you'll also notice, like, the Rod of the Ages start, which is what you'll get first with a lot of the AP builds. It's going to be a 51%. And then the Trinity start's going to be a 49%. So, it's actually a higher win rate to go for AP in normal ELO brackets. Okay. So, those are kind of the stats. That's what happens. That's how people play. It's got some representation, but it's definitely not everywhere. And statistically, in solo queue, it does not have as high of a win rate as the AP version of it. Now, let's talk about his abilities in general and why you might want to do this. And I've got kind of a traditional TF playstyle, and then talk about what the AD TF does for you. Why would people try it? and then ultimately what I think some of the major problems are with the build. So TF in general is going to be a champion that is really known for sort of his macro pressure, right? When people think of TF, sort of historically, it's you push your wave and then you go use your ult and you roam to a side lane and you try to make plays, you try to get kills. He's been a very, very good solo queue champion and Smurf champion. Apto's probably the most famous TF player out there. He's one of the best Korean solo queue players in the world, and this is his signature champ. So he definitely does have the potential to win hard in solo queue, but most of that is off of his macro, because macro is often how you'll win if you play mid lane in solo queue, because it's not just good enough to win your lane, you have to win every lane. And that's where TF can come in and help out with that. So how does he do that? Well, his wild cards are a huge part of it early on. You need to be able to clear that wave really quickly, and I don't remember the exact item spikes where you can clear the back line, but I know that's a huge moment. I think that's once you complete your rod and maybe like get one more piece of another item, like maybe another amp tome or so, then you can clear that back line with your wild cards. That's huge, because if you can't clear the wave, then you're not going to be able to roam in time, because you have to have the minions into their towers so that they can't follow you and so that they can't push back and get tower plates before you return to your lane. So a lot of times you'll push in, you'll ult, you'll go bottom, and then after you get your kill bottom, you'll go back, get an item or two, and then teleport back to middle before they have time to take a plate off of you. So that's kind of historically how TF works. So in order to do that, you have to get AP, because he has a 0.65 AP ratio. If you don't get AP, then your cards aren't going to do any extra damage, and you're not going to clear that wave fast enough. Okay, so that's important to note. You have to have a certain threshold of AP in order to clear those minions to do your job, which is roam side lanes. Okay, pick a card. This is his other thing that's really popular. Blue does help you out a little bit with mana, so you don't need like extreme mana items, although this stuff can get pretty expensive. A lot of times you don't want to be using your blue cards to wave clear, right? You want to be using your red cards, do that AoE damage to those backline minions, and then queue them so that you can clear them out before you get enough AD to do it with just wild cards. And then that'll also help you clear out the melee minions on the front side too with red card. But that does get a little on the expensive side once again. This is what you max second. You always max wild cards first, and then your W second, both in the AP and the AD build. You never max your E. Even if you're going the AD build, you don't do it, because it's just not worth it. All that you're getting out of this, like, you are getting a little bit of extra on-hit damage. You are getting, like, a little bit of extra stacked deck damage. But you're not getting, like, a crazy amount of attack speed. Like, you're getting Trinity to help out some with that, but you're not getting, like, Ginsu's in most builds. It's just going to be Trinity, Rapid Fire, and then Infinity Edge. So, like, a quirky mid style build. But anyways, so this can cost you a little bit of mana. It does give you some wave clear. It does have a flat AD ratio. So there aren't many AD ratios, but the red card is AoE, and it does apply 100% of your AD. So if you do have a lot of AD, you know, that portion of it will help you out with doing a little bit of extra damage. So you've got that, but it does also have an AP ratio that helps you out as well. And then Stacked Deck only has an AP ratio, does not have an AD ratio, gives you some bonus attack speed, some auto attack, and then your ult doesn't have any sort of AD ratio, whatever. You just want CDR just so that you have more opportunities for more ults. Okay, so that's historically kind of how he plays. And then items that you'll get on him, typically, most of the time it's going to be Rod of the Ages, just so you have enough flat mana to where you can keep wave clearing and moving around the map. And then he kind of is close range, like 525 is not like super long range. And he can have a hard time with assassins. Like, you do have a point click stun with your gold card, but you max this out second. And that a lot of times really that's going to be your only defense against assassins. And so if they have a way to get around that, like a fizz jump or any type of other sort of invulnerability, or if they just have a lot of tenacity or something like that, or if you just can't one-shot them, then they can still get on you. So having that Rod of the Ages just gives you a little bit of extra HP cushion, and you know, just having the flat AP can be really nice. Ludens is good if you're really good at hitting those wild cards and getting that poke off. You know, Ludens also does give you CDR, which is really popular. That's why I think historically a lot of people have gone Ludens, although I think these days you still see some Ludens popping up here, but these days, because assassins are so prominent, then more and more people are going Rod of the Ages. And we'll talk about the meta here in just a moment. But that's kind of been sort of your standard build. But what you would do with like the AD build is you're trying to go for Trinity Force. I guess I could have brought this up first. And you'll see a lot of these off-meta builds that we're going to explore in this series. A lot of times Trinity Force is one of the off-meta items. Because this item has just been historically like one of the most abused items. It has been nerfed a lot over time. But it just has so many different like unique features to it. It's just very different from a lot of other items out there. And so it kind of has the potential to create some interesting and weird builds. Like there's a Trinity Ash build. I could also talk about that if people want. I think that one's actually for real. I think that build's actually quite good on Ash. Like the Essence Reaver and a Trinity Force. I talked about that in my 80 carry tier list. So go check out the timestamp for that if you want to know more. But the reason why you would get this on TF is a big one is it gives you the 20% CDR early, which is really nice. And then it gives you a little bit more burst damage off of the Spellblade. Now, TF's base AD is not that high, but it's also like not that low. It's okay. And that's what Trinity procs off of. I do not believe... converts this to instead deal magic damage and a bonus effect based on cards selected. I'm actually not sure about this interaction with Trinity Force. I didn't hear any of the guides. I did look up a couple of different guides, watch some guides, but no one was talking about this explicitly. I don't think this damage right here interacts with Sheen. Now, it does not say it's an on-hit effect. Let me see. Does it say here if it interacts with Sheen or not? Can trigger. Okay. I don't think it interacts with Sheen. Sorry. Let me. I just now thought of that. Let me look this up. That was back in 2016. Okay, it seems like it's really old. I don't think it does. I don't think it does. But the reason that I'm looking at that is I know there's a bug with Ash, with Trinity Force, that a lot of posts talked about where Sheen actually does interact with Ash's passive with that. So if you have like 50% critical strike with Ash, then the Sheen proc does 50% more damage. So you can actually get Sheen procs upwards of like 400 or 500 damage on Sheen procs, and that's what makes Trinity Force do so much damage on Ash. And that's something that's not intuitive at all because that's not how it works most of the time. So I know that Sheen does not work with on-hit effects. So like Ezreal's extra, his Q, the bonus damage that you get off his Q, it does auto attack damage, but then it also does an on-hit extra amount of damage. That does not get... The extra on-hit damage does not get applied to Trinity. And most of the time, most of these types of effects don't. So I don't think that this gets added together with Trinity. It might. You know, let me know in the comments if you know. But the question is, it's like, okay, if you have 100 AD and 0 AP and you attack with this and it's ranked all the way up, it would normally do 220 AD. But then, and your Sheen proc would do 100 damage because... or Trinity Force would do 300 damage because it does 200% extra damage on your next auto attack after using an ability. But would this get included in that? So I'm wondering if this is 220 that would get added on to your initial 100, which would give you 320, and then Sheen proc would do like 600 extra damage or something. I don't think that's the case, or he would like literally be one-shotting people off of Trinity. So I don't think that's the case. I think the main thing is it just gives you extra movement speed to allow you to kite around. Gives you the cooldown reduction so that you have more like capabilities to move around. Not only does it give you flat move speed, but it also gives you the phage so that you get the extra 20 flat movement speed when you run around, and if you kill a minion or whatever, then it gives you bonus movement speed. Although it's halved on ranged champions, so keep that in mind. So you're only going to get 10 flat movement speed off of that. And it just kind of gives you just a little bit more burst damage on top of things whenever you're casting it. I'll be honest, I mean, it has a pretty good collection of things, but I am skeptical of this. I mean, it does give you the 40% attack speed, so that means that you will get more of your stacked deck procs, you know, more opportunities. It'll charge up your rapid fire faster, more opportunities to crit with Infinity Edge. So you do have that. Like, I totally get that. So it just does more sustained damage. But in general, I think this is going to be lower burst damage if you get an item like this than if you get something like Rod of the Ages when you fully combo somebody, or if you get like a more traditional like Lichbane item. And the thing is, Lichbane is similar. It's cheaper, but it has a ton of ability power, movement speed, mana, and your next basic attack deals bonus magic damage on hit. So that's the thought process behind it, I think. And it is more expensive as well. So I think the biggest thing, the difference between these two are you get the 40% attack speed off of the other one, and you get the phage movement speed. And you get probably, in many cases, off of less items, you get more bonus damage. Because Trinity is just your base attack damage. So you don't need any extra items to scale with this. Versus Lichbane, you probably need at least 1 or 2 extra AP items before this really starts popping, because it has a 0.5 AP ratio on it, but it's only 75% of your base AD. So Trinity is going to do more damage right offhand. Let's keep in mind, this is way, way more expensive, too. I mean, this is $37, $33 versus, like, Rod of the Ages, I believe, is $2,600. It's either $2,600 or $2,700. So we're talking, like, over 1,000 more extra gold before you complete this item. The good news is the components are quite good. I mean, getting Phage and Sheen are still pretty quality components. And this has 20% CDR. So Rod doesn't have 20% CDR in either. And I don't think Lich has any. Lich has 10. So more expensive, but it's going to give you a larger immediate power spike than either Lichbane or Rod. Rod has to charge over 10 minutes. So it gives you more sustained damage, allows you to take towers faster, dragons faster, and allows you to take tanks faster. So if you're having to cut your way through a Mundo specifically, because Mundo has a lot of tenacity and he's very popular right now, so your gold card is not going to stun him for very long, or a champion like Nunu. Those are like the two kind of major tanks that are being played right now. But it can help you sort of navigate, run around, get more gold cards off on them, have higher attack speed so that you can do more sustained damage over time when burst damage is not reliable. So to fit in with that build, you're going to see Rapid Fire Cannon is usually the next one. This one obviously makes sense on Twisted Fate. People get that item sometimes even in AP builds, although it's not quite as good with AP builds. But the longer range... The longer range is obviously going to let you hit your gold card at a safer range, and sometimes even poke towers out with your blue card. So this item's a lot more affordable. Rapid Fire is just really good in general. It gives you 2,600 to get this item. So your first item, your Trinity, is way more expensive, but then your second item is actually probably more affordable, right? Because with traditional TF, I believe you're going to get Rod, and then probably Lichbane. Would be what I would think is your next item. Yeah, Rod, Lichbane. So Lichbane's going to be 3,200, so you're going to save 600 by getting Rapid Fire. Now your total package is going to be more expensive because you got 2,700 plus 3,200. It's going to be like 5,900 versus your Trinity, your 3,900 plus 2,600. It's going to be like 6,500. So the first two items are still going to be more expensive at 6,500, but your second one in the abstract is going to be a little bit cheaper off of Rapid. So it gives you that big bonus movement speed, a little bit of extra on-hit attack damage, which is okay, and allows you to energize faster. You're not going to take fleet footwork, so that energy is not going to matter that much. But just the more that you auto-attack, the faster that the energize is going to work, which is going to give you that the extra range on the on-hit. Then, of course, it has critical strike, attack speed, and extra movement speed. Now, it's really nice that Trinity gives you movement speed, quite a bit of extra movement speed, and so does Rapid Fire Cannon. So these are two items that give you extra movement speed, versus traditionally in your first couple items, you're only going to have one movement speed item. with your Lich Bane. So, it is handy. You are going to move faster while you're in combat than you would with your normal thing, which is good because that's going to allow you to kite better and get more distance from the person chasing you whenever you hit your gold card. So that's pretty handy. And then finally, you go Infinity Edge after that. You already have some attack speed off of this, or you definitely have attack speed off of both items, but you have critical strike off of this. You're going to get even more value out of Infinity Edge. Now, Infinity Edge, once again, super expensive. It's going to be 3,400, so that's going to be more expensive than your third item that you would usually get on Twisted Fate, which most games are over at 2 items. But I think you'd just be, just working towards like Death Cap or something like that. So I guess it's about the same price as Death Cap at that point. I guess, sometimes you might get Rod of the Ages, or not Rod of the Ages, Zanya's, or, something like that. But you're going to get Infinity at next, and that's going to give you a really good sort of, once you get all 3 of those items, just pretty hard-hitting damage. Once again, not going to be as much reliable burst damage as if you had Rod, Lich Bane, Death Cap. That's going to delete any squishy pretty much when you have those 3 items. But against tanks, this is going to be a bit more reliable. Another problem, if you want to try to go ADTF, which I didn't even mention over here, is you have to understand that team comps right now are often overloaded on AD. Not always. There are some more AP junglers that are coming out these days. You've got Eve is very popular and strong right now. Gragas is like okay. But a lot of your junglers, it's going to be Kha'Zix. Mundo actually does mostly AD damage because they max his E, although he does do some magic damage. Jarvan, Kha'Zix, Mundo, Kayn. You still got like Xin Zhao, Lee Sin. Almost everything except for Eve, and like I said, maybe Gragas, are going to be AD out of the jungle. And then, of course, your bot lane is usually going to be AD. And then your top lane, a lot of the most popular champions up there are still going to be AD as well, right? So you're going to be thinking about, your Fioras, your Renekton's, Darius's, Jax does kind of mixed damage, but quite a bit of AD. So if you go AD middle as TF, your team might have too much AD, right? So you do not want a team comp with 4 or 5 AD champions, because then the enemy team just all get Ninja Tabby and like 1 armor item, and it's impossible to kill them. So you're creating a vulnerability in your team comp by getting this as well. So overall, what's weak about it? Why do I think that it's for fun versus for real? So I've talked about several of the things right now, but the biggest thing is, the biggest things I have here is it's a slower power spike. Trinity Force is going to cost a lot more than Rod of the Ages, over 1,000 gold more than Rod. Just for context, that takes forever. That's 3 kills, or if you're just going by minion waves, if you're saying most people get like 100 gold off a minion wave, because in most elo brackets, especially if we're talking like silver and gold, people are only going to hit like half of the minions on average in a wave. So if absolute perfect CS at 10 minutes is 120 CS, you might see people with 50 or 60 CS on average, right? If you're really good at farming, you might get to 70. So you're going to be losing a lot of those minions. And those minions, on average, I think the melee minions are 21 and the ranged are 14. So on average, they're going to be like 17 or 18 gold. And so if we look at what your budget's going to be for minion gold at 10 minutes, if let's say you're farming like really, really good for a gold player, like a silver player, like 70 times, we'll just be generous and say 18 on average. Now there's a cannon minion that comes through as well, which is it depends on, how much, like how many minutes have passed in the game. But let's just say the cannon minion is worth like 80 on average. So, and that comes every 2 waves, so once per minute. So over the course of 8 minutes where minions have been spawning, that'd be 8 times 70. So we'll just say 560 extra gold. So you have this plus 560 if you hit every cannon minion. So your total budget by 10 minutes is going to be something like somewhere between probably like 1,700 and 2,000 gold if you're getting like 70 CS per minute. So that means that to get the difference between Rod of the Ages and Trinity Force is over half of your total gold you're going to have by 10 minutes. It's half. So you're going to be paying a huge tax in order to get that Trinity Force. So it's going to come online way, way later. And the enemy's going to get their power spike probably faster, especially if you're against like an AD assassin or something, which are very popular right now. You're talking like Zed getting Ghostblade at like 2,900, Talon getting Dustblade at 2,900, and you're going to have to wait an extra 800 gold. That's going to be like 4 or 5 minutes where they're going to be able to blast you before you have a power spike. So that's a big problem in this meta where it's so fast, right? Where just 1 or 2 games or 1 or 2 deaths can completely snowball a game out of control. If they kill you twice while you're waiting on that Trinity, it's probably going to be lights out. So that's a huge problem. It does give a little bit of extra tankiness, which does help some against assassins, gives you the 250 health, but if you go phage early, but it's still going to be a big problem. Another big problem is your wave clear. Remember, one of the signature components of TF is that he can wave clear with his Q, and then he wants to go roam. That's how he really takes over the game. He's never been that great at sort of 1v1 in the laning phase, just fighting other people. What he is good at is pushing and getting down and pressuring those side lanes. But if you don't have the wave clear, you're not going to be able to pressure side lanes. So your wave clear is going to be significantly weaker because you're not going to have any AP to help out your wild cards. AD is not going to matter here. Now, AD does help out some because, your AD that you have does get turned into AoE damage off your red card. So that's a thing. But you're still going to be maxing wild cards. Even if you are going for this AD build, if we look at some of these ADTFs here, they're still maxing wild cards, all of them. So now this guy's doing a weird thing, but I'm telling you, everybody maxes wild cards, even the AD versions. Wild cards all the time, because you have to have it for wave clear. If you're just trying to wave clear with like your W all the time because you're going AD and you want the red card to convert, like it can work, but it's also going to be very, very expensive mana wise. And I don't think it does as much damage overall. Maybe, if you look at like if you have a decent chunk of AD, it's 90 base plus 100% of your AD. It's 50% of your AP. It's possible. If we're looking at the numbers, this is 240 base with 0.65. This is like 190 base. I don't know. Everybody does this, though. Everybody does the Q. Maybe more people should be doing the pick a card max if you're doing the 80 version, but I think wild cards will still give you better overall stuff. I don't think the Sheen proc turns into AoE either. So not only do you not get more damage off your Sheen, but I don't think that it counts as hitting multiple targets, even though this is AoE. And all enemies hit. Don't know about that one. I'd have to experiment. Once again, this is not an in-depth guide. It's just to kind of just work through some of these things. But I don't think it works that way, or more people would be doing it, unless people just haven't thought about that. But like red card plus Sheen, if it does apply Sheen to everything around, then obviously you would want to get that. But I don't think that's how it works. So you're going to be maxing wild cards, but because you don't have AP, you're not going to be able to clear that wave nearly as fast. You're going to be stuck in your lane in this 1v1 matchup that you're probably going to lose against most champions. And you're not going to be able to do what TF wants to do, which is roam around. You're also going to have poor mana management. You're not going to have a mana item. All you're going to have is Trinity, which is going to give you 250 flat mana. That's not the same as all the mana you're going to get off of Rod of the Ages, or the mana you're going to get off of Lichbane. So you're going to be running out of mana much more often. So you're not going to have the mana, and you're not going to have just the AP power to cut through those minions, and you're going to be stuck in a 1v1. You're not going to be able to roam. It's going to be, it feels bad. Also, I guess I'll say few AD ratios. So you do have the 1 on red card, which is AoE, but you're only going to be, I guess all of the cards do have that AD ratio. So if you're throwing golds and blue cards, you'll also do some AD damage, but your Q doesn't have an AD ratio and your E doesn't. So the scaling is going to be limited there. What's up, dude?
Where's your keys?
Maybe coffee table in there. It's either coffee table or a nightstand. Yeah, the one place is wherever I lay down. So the scaling, and as far as that goes, as far as your spells like doing burst damage, is going to be low. So even if you do manage to roam down to a side lane, you're not going to burst people as hard. Like Trinity is just not going to hit as hard early on as something like a Rod of the Ages that's been stacked up. versus a single target. It's going to take more auto attacks because the AP just scales off of all of this stuff way better over time. If you have your stacked deck ready to go whenever you ult down, you're just going to do more burst damage off a Rod. And certainly you're going to do way more burst damage off of Ludens. So it's less likely you're going to convert those roams to kills. You'll still have a decent chance of killing them for sure, but it's not going to be as high of a percentage as you would otherwise have it. I think the meta is just too fast right now, and there aren't many tanks. Now, this is changing a little bit, okay? So, we are starting to see Mundo out there. He's becoming super popular. Nunu's still going to be really strong. But by and large, if we look over here, some of the most popular champs, are going to be these kind of assassin, really high damage champs. Now, are those the best in terms of winning? Not necessarily. I mean, the highest win rate, yeah, those are going to be tanks. It's going to be Volibear, Dr. Mundo, and Nunu as far as, win rates go. But as far as, what people are actually playing, you got to remember people hate playing tanks most of the time. So it doesn't matter if there's a tank that has a 70% win rate, a lot of people just aren't going to play it. Now, Mundo is kind of breaking the mold here because he does a lot of damage too, so people are kind of okay with playing Mundo. But by and large, look at what people are actually playing, what they're picking. You got Lee Sin, Kha'Zix, Jarvan, Elise, Kayn, Silas. A lot of these champions are going to be running at you, and they're going to try to blow you up. So you are not going to have time. When Kha'Zix jumps at you, you're not going to have a lot of time. You're going to have one gold card to kill him, and if you don't kill him in that one gold card, he's probably going to get on you and kill you. So that's what I think. And a lot of the mid laners are also going to be pretty high burst assassins right now, right? If we look at sort of this pick rate, you've got your Ahri, your Zed, your Silas, Kassadin, Katarina, Fizz, Echo. All of these are pretty mobile champions that do really high damage. So once again, you're not going to have the time to sit there and throw off 7 auto attacks to kill them. It needs to be gold card, full combo, they're dead. That's the only way you're going to have a chance against these champions, I think, most of the time. So you need that burst versus assassins. There aren't that many tanks outside of a couple of select ones that show up out of the jungle. Like I mentioned before, you may overload AD on your team if you pick AD, TF middle instead of AP. So for all of those reasons, I think it's just for fun. If you want to try them out, it could be interesting. Now, the meta might change a little bit in the future if, Mundo continues to be strong, if they buff, Zac, Ornn, Malachi. These champions start coming back in, and you need, basically double AD carry, pretty much. Then you could do, this build on TF, plus your AD bottom, and then just have a couple of tanks on your team, and maybe that'd be enough. But by and large, I think it's going to be very situational. I think it's not optimal for the reasons I just described. If you do like this style, if you want to play something that's like an AD carry middle, I would highly recommend Corki instead. Now, Corki is a lot more viable, and Corki, and he has been pretty popular in Pro. I don't remember if he got nerfed or not. But Corki has been more popular, 41 in Pro. I think his win rate's lower in solo queue. But some of the special attributes about Corki in the middle, the biggest one is he's actually AP. His auto attacks actually do AP damage for the most part. I think it's 80% of his auto is AP. So that gets around one of the biggest problems, which is you may overload your team on AD if you play this build. With Corki, you don't have to worry about that as much. Corki also has roaming potential I think his package is is it 5 minutes? 4 minutes. So that is a bit longer than TF, and it's static. CDR doesn't affect this. So it's 4 minutes, but TF for a lot of the game is going to be 2 or 3 minutes on his ult. And Corki's sort of a similar profile, right? You want to push hard a lot of times with your Phosphorus Bomb, but you're also safer, right? You can Valkyrie away and get away from things. TF doesn't have an answer if someone gets behind you. The best option that you have is gold card him and hope you can run away. Corki could actually escape. Corki's also has higher base damages so that he can clear the wave a bit faster. And he actually has his wave clear, his Phosphorus Bomb, actually does scale with AD versus TF's wildcards do not scale with AD. So with Corki, when you get AD, you're still going to be able to clear, okay? And that's a big thing with Twisted Fate is you can't clear. Then he also has Gatling Gun, which is really cheap that can help you clear too. So Corki does have the ability to clear. He does have the ability to roam down. Maybe not quite as often as TF effectively, but he still has mechanics that allow him to roam pretty well. And then he doesn't have the CC. He doesn't have the gold card that TF has, so that's definitely worth mentioning. But he does have a bit more poke, so even if you can't roam or you don't want to roam, you can still poke people under tower. And I think that he just has way higher burst damage also. You know, if you go into somebody with Trinity Force Corki and you hit him with Phosphorus Bomb and just like one of your big rockets plus a Trinity proc, you can definitely blow some people up a lot faster than I think TF is going to be able to blow people up. So, you know, they are a little bit different. You know, TF is going to have, you know, the gold card that you can spam out. You know, he's going to be moving kind of quick. But in general, my recommendation, if you want something that's a bit closer to the meta, something that is probably going to bring in more success, that's a similar play style in terms of like AD carry middle, then I would probably run Corki. But anyways, that's going to be it. Thank you very much. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Let me know what you think about this series. I am going to get it done in about 40 minutes, so that's really good for me. But other ones that I want to cover soon, like I said, probably Swain. If people want to hear about Ashe, I can do that. If there are other off-meta builds that seem really popular that a lot of people are talking about, just let me know, and I'll give you the honest truth. I'm not going to hype it up. I'm not going to all caps it, and I'll be fair. You know, I told you, you know, Twisted Fate can be good in some circumstances, especially against like a Mundo, if your team's not overloaded on AD. So I think I'm pretty fair about these things, but you know, I want to be real. I want to give you the scoop. I want that to be my thing that separates me from a lot of the other content creators out there. So anyways, let me know what you think. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like this real, true analysis here. Come by, check out the stream. Usually starts around 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Most nights, we'd love to have you. It's a super friendly, chill community. I try to be as conversational as possible while I'm streaming. You know, I'll answer any questions that you have about League or life, anything that you want to talk about. I try to be conversational in almost anything, so we'd love to have you. And check out the rest of the content on the channel as well. I do tier lists, patch notes, in-depth champion guides. I'm going to continue doing more with this series. The factor fiction, is it for fun, is it for real? And I'm going to see if I can start adding on some more content as well. So be sure to check all that out, and I'll see you next time. Have a great day.